You have been in the newspapers in the last couple of weeks. There was a big feature in both The Guardian and The Independent about film sequels, and you claim, or at least the articles claim, that you have found a secret formula of actually predicting the success of a movie sequel, which sounds fascinating. Could you please tell us a little bit more about that?
So if I really would have found the formula of the success of a sequel, I probably would have left academia at all and would now be working elsewhere. However, there's some truth in that, and so what we actually do is not predict the success of any kind of movie title, but we use that information about what we expect, what a movie title will make at the box office and video rentals, to estimate the monetary value of a brand right, a brand value right, in this case of a movie title.
So you actually say that a sequel is a brand extension, and when we think about it, we see so many brand extensions now creeping up everywhere in all product categories, and especially movie sequels. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think by now. So there's definitely a trend towards this. Why is that? Why are these sequels or brand extensions in general actually so attractive, apparently, to marketeers and producers?
Sequels have always been there in the movie industry, and they haven't always been bad. So think about The Godfather in 1974, the sequel, which won an Oscar for Best Film. But now you're right, there is some trend in Hollywood and elsewhere to produce sequels, and the reason is what we find, and probably the Hollywood people, the industry people, they have a feeling for that, they anticipate that. There are two advantages of making sequels. The one is that we find that sequels produce on average higher revenues than regular new movie titles. So this is the one thing. And the other advantage is that they are less risky.
So how exactly do you actually go about conceptualizing the monetary value of a brand extension, and in this case a sequel?
Yeah, what we do is we draw from a pretty large and comprehensive sample of movie titles, of sequel titles, and we match them with what we call identical non-sequels. So films which are, in terms of budget, star power and all other ingredients, very similar to that, but they miss the sequel character, so the brand character. And then we develop prediction models for both, for sequels on the one hand and for non-sequels on the other. And then we see what the differences are in our predictions and the actual revenues, of course. And we do this using standard regression models. So this is the approach we see. And what we find is that there's, on the one hand, this positive, what we call forward spillover effect, which means that if you have a sequel, it on average is less risky and makes more money at the box office than compared to an equal non-branded movie title.
Is this true for all sequels, or are there specific reasons why some are actually more successful than others?
Well, yeah, that's an important question, because traditional studies, they only look at averages. And what we do is we have a model, we try to get one step ahead of that and move under our understanding forward. And what we find here is that in our model, we also include film characteristics and sequel characteristics, so that we can not only have an average measure of monetary success, but we can say, okay, if the star of the first movie is still in the second movie, will appear in the second movie, take a leading role there, then this has a monetary effect, a very positive monetary effect on the success, on the value of the secret right then.
So you already mentioned the reappearance of a star, but are there other factors? What exactly are the success factors of a sequel? You know, what should producers do to make sure that they will make the projected amount of money?
We also have what we call the release or timing continuity. So is the film released in the same part of the year? So some of the movies, they are released at, let's say, the fall, close to Christmas, and the sequel then is released at a different point in time. There might be reasons for that, like, okay, the shooting, they weren't able to finish it at the right time, they found a better spot, or they think they have a better, more lucrative spot for the movie. But actually we see that if you move ahead, if you move away from the original recipe, it's a problem. And also the major determinant is the success of the original, in the awareness that it has created, the box office has generated, and also the image. So we call the image the quality.
So really what you're finding is that it seems to make perfect economic sense for a producer to produce sequels. So if anything, your research implies that we're going to see more of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we see is that it is really, there are solid arguments, revenue increases, and risk reductions, which make it a pretty economic decision to make sequels, to harvest existing brands, which is done in almost every industry, and it should also be done in the movies. There are some people who say, okay, now given that your findings are valid, the industry will now stop producing original movies and only produce sequels. This is of course not true, and this will not be true, because what do you need, or what you need actually for a successful sequel, right, is a successful brand. This is what we show, and so there's always the need to produce new brands, to produce new potential brands which you then can harvest and make into sequels. And if you don't have that, you just by exploiting existing brands, this will not be a lasting concept.
So you mentioned brands again. Do your findings also apply to other product categories than just movies?
We think that it's a pretty generalizable approach that we use. However, the limitations are probably the data. We use the movie industry for two reasons. The one is we are fascinated by it. This is the one. And the second is there's great data available here. And so what you need is extensive data and extensive understanding about past releases, which we have in the case of movies, but which is hardly available for any other industry like yogurts or whatever there might be. So this is a major limitation. If you have that database, if you have access to that, if you have a good understanding of the factors that drive success, you can basically copy our approach and use it within any other industries than movies.